Alright, well, looks like it's time for another rant. But first of all, our special guest has a message for you. And it's George Washington, live via Worthless Paper. My fellow Americans, it pains me to see you allow your freedoms to slip through your fingers. However, you were not aware. The very institutions which were designed to make you aware instead distracted you. And now, I am afraid I may be too late. Please, open your eyes. Share. Tell everyone. And send a clear message that you are not going to take it anymore. Before it is too late, and everything that me and my awesome bros fought to guarantee you is gone. Well, that was a very heartfelt message. Thank you, George. Yeah, seems to have come undone. As you can see, he's very broken up about this. Just want to say, just for for the record, I found this way, and I fully intend to take it back together and turn it into my local bank for a new one so I can trade it for something useful. So, I've been trying to keep my composure. But things are just gaining speed too fast. I talked to you about the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. That's going to be signed into law very soon. And I'll reiterate very briefly that it literally has been not just interpreted, but the language in it literally provides the government with the right to detain anyone indefinitely, U.S. citizens, non-U.S. citizens, on American soil or abroad, for suspected terrorism. And it goes on to describe the covered people, and you wouldn't believe how broad the umbrella is, my friends. Furthermore, we've got the Patriot Act, which is the language, and that is also very broad. And if you could connect the dots here for a moment, the Patriot Act is something that was also passed under the term terrorist because they were trying to save you from the terrorists. And in that act, it describes suspected terrorists as the language is anyone who expresses dissent against federal government policies. And honestly, under that definition, I'd be proud to be identified as a terrorist right now, because I would be embarrassed to find out that someone was going around spreading a rumor that I was 100% in line with what our government's doing right now, because there's a lot that I disagree with, and probably just about all of it. So, first of all, let me clarify, because I'm sure that some people are really got that word terrorist in their head. It's pretty bad, but if you think about it, it really has no meaning. It's just, okay, in 2011 or 2001, we had this terrorist attack on America, and I don't doubt that someone else did it. There's a lot of crazy people out there who are saying, oh, it was probably our government who did it, but no, it was probably terrorists. I'm willing to bet that it was terrorists. But see, ever since then, there's been this really dangerous inclination to just label things as terrorists whenever they're bad, or whenever they're bad. And now it's gotten to the point where just about anyone is a terrorist. You should report people, according to the FBI, as suspected terrorists if they're missing fingers, if they have recently changed their hair color, or if they have bright stains on their shirts. And according to the Patriot Act, if they have shown a dissent towards any federal agencies or federal policies. And I think that I don't have to point out to you that even in the very narrow view that you've been allowed of what's been going on, you disagree with some of our policies. So you're a terrorist, okay? And that's not, and I know I'm getting loud, but this is not an exaggeration. This is the law. you by law are a terrorist. And now that I'm here telling you this, I am especially a fucking terrorist. And you know what? It's just horseshit. It's baloney. So we've got the Patriot Act. They've been using this word terrorist to basically compel you to stand behind anything they want to do now. And now they have this National Defense Authorization Act that says conveniently that anyone can be detained without evidence, without trial. On top of that, we have SOPA, the Internet Piracy Act. Once again, an act meant to take away rights from you that is being disguised as something that's meant to protect you. Now, the way that they're presenting the bill is a bill to prevent piracy, to prevent people from downloading or copyright infringement. But what the bill actually says is, if you have content on your website, if you own a website domain that you paid for, and you have content that they deem to be suspected as a copyright infringement, then they can take your website away from you. And they also would like to, I hope you don't mind, it's not really a big deal, but if there's content on websites that they deem to be bad, it's a very broad word, by the way. I had a pretty bad sandwich today, and, and I'm feeling kind of bad right now. But the point is, if there's content on a website that they deem to be bad, they want to block your IP address based on the fact that it's originating from the United States from visiting that website. And, I mean, this isn't like any sort of secret, it sounds silly and ridiculous and secretive and maybe conspiracy theory because I'm the only person who you've ever heard say anything about it. But the reason is because the media is ignoring it. The media is ignoring all of this, and they don't. And that is when it starts to get a little conspiracy theory, a little bit, but it's perfectly rational conspiracy theory. So. Media in other countries is already reporting about these things that are passing. I read one article comparing America's future to Russia and China because they use copyright laws to crush their government criticism. And now this is basically what they're saying. If you have content on your website that expresses negative views towards American policies, they can block Americans from visiting your website. This is the bill that has overwhelming support that is going to pass. It's going to pass, as is the NDAA. As soon as it gets to the president's desk, it went unanimously in the House, 99-1. So today I was thinking, like, what will my next rant be about? Maybe I'll talk about how the media is basically controlling your minds and ignoring all the important issues, because they're part of the whole fucking plan. And over the years, like these little conspiracy theories that people have been told, oh yeah, if people say that, they're loony. Well, things have been more and more coming true. Remember, you probably didn't even hear about it because the media didn't want to talk about it, and everyone was saying, oh, now the dollar is just being printed, billions of dollars just being printed left and right. And everyone said, oh, you fucking, give me a break. You guys are crazy. Have you seen the news? Our economy is, obviously, if they were printing money like that, they would have, and this is an argument that I heard many times back in the day before I knew anything about it, when I was a sheep, just like you. They said, people would say, oh, yeah, obviously, if we were just printing money like that, then we would have printed the money to pay our debt. Well, guess what? We now know for a fact that we were printing money like that to the tune of $16 trillion. And, by the way, we're still in debt. But that was imaginary money, just like this. So, I was thinking, like, what am I going to talk about? And then I stopped in at a small restaurant on my campus, and they have a lot of TVs in there, mostly sports, because that's what Americans are pretty much in tune to, is ESPN. But they did have one TV on in the corner that was CNN. And I was thinking, like, oh, I'll watch, because they're probably going to report on one of the two biggest pieces of legislation that has ever passed since the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And the reason why they're so big is because they're contradictory to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So I was thinking maybe they'll be covering that. And I look over, and what are they talking about? They're talking about the drone. This is such a huge deal that this drone is in Iran now. And let's be clear, this isn't the first drone that Iran has ever gotten. You know, they've been able to successfully at least get drones to crash in their airspace. But the big thing about this drone is supposedly it's big new technology, and somehow they got it imperfectly intact. I'll stifle my conspiracy theories about how the hell they got a drone, but no, I won't, in fact. I think it's too big of a coincidence that right whenever they're trying to pass all this legislation about terrorism, and all of a sudden, Iran is able to hack into our drones, which is are in fully encrypted channels that would take literally, and this is not an exaggeration, it would take 1 million years for a computer that could make 1 million guesses per second, on average, that's statistically, for them to guess the right encryption code, because it's 1 to the 38th possible codes. And don't even try to imagine how big that is. It's fucking huge. 1 million is 1 to the 6th. Okay? So, or it's 10 to the 6th, I'm sorry. Wow. Professor Knudsen would have slapped me for that. The point is this, so I look over, they're covering this, and all of a sudden there's this big breaking news about a reporter, an American New York Times reporter in Bahrain, who, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that country right, I just saw the words on the screen, who, breaking news, dun, 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 he's been detained. He was gassed during a protest. He was there trying to cover protests, and he was gassed and detained and not read his rights. And this is a huge deal. You should be infuriated by this, the fact that an American is in a country where no rights are guaranteed and is being held against the rights that we expect him to have because he's supposed to have them in America. But guess what? That's no big deal, because when all these Occupy Wall Street protests were happening, and since December 1st, there's been at least 30 cases that have come out, and you can Google it. I'll put links in the comments. There's been at least 30 cases that have come out of reporters being thrown in jail because they were filming and covering the protests in America. But that was never on the news. You have to search for that shit. But it's not a secret, and it is a true fact. And there's live footage of it happening available if you look really hard. But the point is this. The media is a distraction. I'm sure that none of you have heard of this, because most of you have already accepted the fact that you're not going to get anything useful from CNN or Fox or MSNBC. They're just going to keep spoon-feeding you bullshit. Okay? So while these bills are passing that are literally Barack Obama, your wonderful champion, who I'll admit I voted for because I was naive. But honestly, now in hindsight, I still believe he was the best option. Regardless, though, I knew even then, I don't really have any record to go on for this guy. But regardless, he had good promises. It was all bullshit. He didn't do any of it. Not one thing. Not one single thing. He promised to shut down Guantanamo Bay. He promised to get the corporate influence out of our government. And he promised, if we're still in Iraq, by the time he becomes president, it will be the first thing he does. Nothing. None of those things have come to fruition. Now, a big coincidence, right whenever it's almost time to be reelected, he starts talking about taking the troops out of Iraq in time for Christmas, and in fact, they're actually not coming out until December 31st. But it made for a great speech for him to say in time for Christmas. So here's my point. I was going to make a nice composed rant about this, and then I got a text from my mom, and it was in all caps, and it was very concerning to me. And I'm going to read it out loud to you right now. She said, And this, by the way, is the first time that my mom has gone out of her way to contact me in a while. So it's obviously a big deal. I mean, not that my mom and I aren't in touch. I call her and talk to her and stuff. But this is the first time in a while that she's gone out of her way to contact me. And it's in all caps, and it says, "Are you out of your mind ranting like that on Facebook? Apparently you want to end up in prison, and obviously you don't ever want a good job." So my mom apparently caught wind of my other rants, quote-unquote rants, because I'm sure you would agree they were much more lax than this one. And all I did on those was speak the truth, okay? I was very careful not to inject my opinion into these things other than just my ferocity and my passion about the subject. But the things that I said, I stuck to facts, and you can check the sources. Not like the bullshit letter that your government will send you if you try to petition against something, telling you about all the reasons why they're doing what they're doing with all these links to resources, and all the resources are more government agencies, and then those government agencies have no studies. They're just saying things. And I'll share one of those with you guys shortly, possibly in the next rant, but this took precedent. I was literally in tears. It is so sickening to me that my mom is scared for her son to be thrown in prison because he's sharing his views on Facebook. No one told that to her. She's not like hugely into politics. She's not aware of she doesn't even know about these bills that are being passed. She just walked in on my brother watching the rants and heard me saying things that were, justifiably upset, and now she's afraid and asking me to stop because she's afraid that I'll be thrown in prison. Is that America? No, that is not fucking America. Okay, no American should ever be afraid that because they're sharing their views based on facts, especially, but it doesn't even fucking matter. There's nothing about whether or not it's fact in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. No American should ever be afraid of being thrown in jail for sharing their views. And especially a mother should not be afraid of her son being thrown in jail for sharing his views. That's disgusting. And you know what? I'd hate to say it, because as disgusting as it is, her fear is rational. It's not conspiracy anymore, folks. Open your fucking eyes. They're passing these bills. They're not talking about it. It's not being debated. They're passing them. It will be law within the next few days that American citizens can be detained on American soil without evidence, without trial, and abroad. And I just want to point out that it is way too big of a fucking coincidence that this happens at the same time as a certainly orchestrated effort to sweep the nation and clean up these Occupy Wall Street movements. As much as the media try their best to not grant any legitimacy to these movements, saying that they don't have any real views, they don't have actual opinions, they're just a bunch of smelly hippies, that is horse shit. And I honestly don't give a fuck if you agree with me or not. It's horse shit. There may have been some whiny, spoiled kids in that audience, but for the majority, it was they were all Americans, all of them, and they were sharing what they thought were very legitimate concerns with our government. And the media did a good enough job of convincing you that they were a bunch of stinky, dirty hippies, that you thought it was a good idea for the police to sweep them up and tell them to get out and stop practicing their Bill of Rights, their rights that are inalienable. It's too much of a coincidence, folks. Mayors and cities all across the United States have now admitted that they were on conference calls with upwards of 24 cities at once, talking about the strategies with military strategists, international groups, telling them, well, this is what we did in these countries, that's what I recommend you do in your country. And then, at the same time, the government passes a bill saying that if you show dissent towards your government, you're a terrorist, and you're going to jail. Open your eyes, sheeple. It's not a joke anymore. It's not a conspiracy theory. I'm not loony. I'm fucking rational as fuck. I'm here I'm at Case Western Reserve University studying engineering, and I'm actually doing pretty decent, okay? So, I'm not crazy. I am not loony. And my friends will all know that I would never get this upset about something that is just a passing thing. That's no big deal. Okay, so open your eyes.